Ahead and start recording. Um, for everyone, this meeting will be recorded, so um, you can share it with anybody you like after. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Pride and Protection, Queer Library Workers in a Polarized Cultural Landscape, a free virtual program sponsored by the Rainbow Roundtable and the Social Responsibilities Roundtable, or CERT. CERT believes that libraries and librarians must center social responsibility by recognizing and helping to solve social problems and inequities in order to work for the common good. I'm Melinda Borey, she, her. I'm joined by Derek Wilmot Montoya in the chat. Everyone say thank you to Derek if he helps you. Before I introduce our speaker for the hour, I'm going to go over a little housekeeping. If you'd like to enable captions, you're going to need to click more in the bottom right of the screen, click captions, and then show captions in the menu. This session, as I mentioned, will be recorded. The recording will be available on our website within a few weeks and also emailed out to everyone who registered. Please keep your cameras and mics off unless you are presenting or posing a question during the Q&A, which we will have at the end. Please be respectful and extend care and compassion to yourself and others. We will have time for questions and answers after our presentation has concluded. Please use the Q&A feature to post questions, and you can use the chat to relay any tech issues, resource share-outs, or any appreciation for anything that our panelists has to say. You can pop questions into the Q&A at any time, but we will go over them at the end. You don't have to wait till the end, but we'll save them till the end. All right, so our session, A Queer and Present Danger, is presented by Jenni Frencham, Main Branch Manager at the Morgan County Public Library. Jenni, take it away.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you are here today. My name is Jenni Frencham. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you so you can see what it is that I am looking at. We are talking about a queer and present danger, protecting queer and trans library staff. So to start with, if I can get my slides to slide for me, there they go. Let's talk about a rationale. Why is this needed? I know a lot of you probably already know why we need to talk about protecting our queer and trans library staff. But this is something that has hit home to me, particularly in my library, not only for myself, but also for a number of my staff members. I am a very lucky person in that I have a very diverse staff in my very red state that I live in. And the first time that we had an incident that I had to deal with at my library had to do with the book Genderqueer. We had a patron come in and they wanted to request that this book be reconsidered, which they are allowed to do. One of the things that I have at my library, the way things are set up, is I have my desk in my office is right behind the circulation desk. So I'm able to hear a lot of the interactions that my staff have with some of our patrons. And I could hear that something was getting heated out at the desk. And I was able to step out there and see that unfortunately the patron who was upset about genderqueer thought that the best way to present their information that they had was to read some very objectionable and obscene comments that they had found on social media out loud to my staff at the circulation desk, also within earshot of the children's area of our library where there were children playing. I'm sure that this person was probably angry and wanting to get a rise out of people, but that also made us feel unsafe. That made me feel not super safe, and that made a lot of my queer and trans staff not feel safe either. And one of the things that's really important to me at the library is to make sure that my staff feel safe and secure as much as possible at the library and that they've got the support and protections that they need. So we had people come in person and in our space, all of a sudden making us feel like we were potentially going to have some danger happen. A few months ago, I also had a patron come into the library. I was helping them at the desk, and you can't see it from the camera, but I've got a fair number of tattoos on my arms, and it was warm weather, so I was wearing short sleeves. And this patron walked up to the desk and decided to share a fun fact with me that if we had been in Nazi Germany, that they would have killed me and skinned me for my tattoos. Just in case you didn't know this already, anytime a fun fact includes the phrase Nazi Germany, it's not actually a fun fact. So things like this happening makes me feel a little squeamish, makes me not really want to be at the desk working with the patrons, makes me want to go like hide somewhere, right? So we definitely need some physical protections and some safety measures that we can put in place to make sure that our staff are feeling safe when they're at the library. There's also, unfortunately, the dumpster fire that is the internet these days. There's a lot of things that are wonderful about the internet, but there's a lot of things that are not so great about it as well. This next slide that I'm going to share has some screenshots of some attacks that I received at the library. I am going to advise everybody to take gentle care because there is some foul language in some of these screenshots. You don't need to read them if you don't want to read them. You don't even need to look at the slide. Um, but we had somebody last year all of a sudden started spamming our library. And I left their names on here because these aren't their real names as far as I'm aware. These were dummy Facebook accounts. I was at home, it was a weekend. I was just trying to relax, and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up because someone had been commenting on the library's Facebook, and I had notifications turned on just so that if someone asked a question about a program or wanted to know something about a service, that I could answer that because that's part of my job. And all of a sudden I looked and realized that somebody had put that very first comment where they were accusing me of grooming their 10-year-old on several of our posts on our library's page. Like they went onto our library's Facebook page and they must have found like the first 10 posts that were there and just copy pasted that right on there on all of those. Not only did that just cause me a severe amount of anxiety just to see that, and to try to figure out what it was I was supposed to do with it. But obviously, I didn't feel super safe with that. I knew I didn't need to I wouldn't be the one to deal with that. So first thing I had to do on the weekend when we're supposed to have time off is to text my director and say, "Hey, there's stuff going on our Facebook page. I think you need to take a look at it because this is something that I shouldn't be touching." So she screenshotted everything, hid the comments, and then sent a response, which is what that the second snippet is there, to this person after we checked and saw that it was indeed a dummy account. And we were pretty sure that this wasn't anybody that, knew me in person. Um, and then after that, when I came to the library on Monday, we had to have a conversation about it. Had I had any difficult interactions with patrons recently? Had I had anything difficult happen online? Why was this particular thing happening at this moment? And we couldn't figure out any reason for it. We hadn't had anybody come in and be upset at the library recently. We hadn't tried to put on a drag story time or something. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do those, but like we didn't have anything that I could see was a cause. All of a sudden, these things were happening. And then I had a little bit of a break. A couple of months later, I started getting Facebook messages from Bryce Riley. I don't know who that is either. That's another dummy account. And then on top of that, that was on my personal Facebook, not on the library's Facebook. And then on top of that, whoever it was also found our library's website and started sending in messages through our library's contact form on our website, which actually goes to my inbox. And the thing that struck me as particularly terrible about this one is that the name that they used on that is actually a name of a person that I know. It's not the person who sent that at all. I did check with them and say, "Hey, I'm just checking. Maybe your account's been hacked. Maybe somebody's trying to send something with your name." No, that hadn't happened. But somebody had found a name of somebody who was my friend and had decided to, put their name into this contact form. And again, send things to the library and accuse me of harming their children, which I had not done. And all of this, as far as we could tell, was just because I exist as a queer person in a red state. My director has been very supportive through all of this and wanted to be able to help me out. And we couldn't figure out what it is that we needed to do. There were some things we could figure out, but we looked online. We, posted in various social media groups for libraries to see what were other people doing when stuff like this happened. And nobody had a really good answer for us. So I decided that it was really important that we have a time to talk about what is a really good answer for this. And I'm going to apologize. That's my cat in the background. She had surgery today, so she's wandering around back here with the donut on. Don't worry about her. So we had to talk about how are we going to keep people safe. So we're going to have two different options or two different portions here. We're going to talk about physical protections that we're going to do to keep you safe in person when you're at your library. And then we're also going to talk about things that you need to do to keep you safe online. So let's start with the physical protections. The first thing I want to talk about is some general safety. Before an event even happens, what is it that you can do to set yourself and your staff up for success? So the first thing I would want you to think about is, do you have a plan at your library for if a patron starts monopolizing a staff member's time? We have all had those patrons who come up and some of them are just lonely and they just want to talk. But do you have a safety plan in place for if somebody comes in and they are going to take up all of a staff member's time? One of the things that I have found that's the most difficult for library staff members in general is that we're in a helper profession. And it is our default to be polite and to be accommodating and to listen to people and to not tell them no and to not be too assertive because that sounds rude. And that means that sometimes we end up spending 15, 20, 25, 30, 60 minutes with the same patron who's talking to us and doesn't necessarily need any library help anymore. They're just monopolizing your time. So do you have a protection at your library, some kind of a plan in place for if a patron is monopolizing a staff member's time, making them feel uncomfortable? At my library, we do. We have a code phrase that we use because we used to use a service called Discover Books to take our weeded books away. So we have some book bins. We used to have book bins that we put our weeded materials in. So our test phrase that we use if I see somebody who's monopolizing a staff member's time is I can walk up to that staff member and say, hey, could you help me with the Discover book bins? That question sounds totally innocent and harmless, and it is indeed innocent and harmless, but it's a way for me to alert that staff member. I can see that this patron's been with you for a while and you don't look like you're super comfortable with what's going on. Do you want me to help you? Like I'm giving you this out, or are you okay? And giving them that agency, I think, is really important because that allows the staff member who's being spoken to choose to say either, yeah, actually, I can absolutely go help you with that. And then they can turn to the patron and say, I'm sorry, I've got to go help with this. It's been great talking to you, and they can step away. Or they can say, you know what, I'll come and help you in just a minute because I want to finish up with this patron. And that lets me know that they're comfortable with what's going on and that, everything is okay. So it's always important to have some kind of a protection in place, some kind of a plan in place for if a patron is monopolizing a staff member's time. I have also been known to walk up to my staff members because I'm the manager and tell them that I needed to see them in my office or that we needed to have a meeting. I've also called to various desks in the library because we have security cameras so I can see if someone is standing at our reference desk for too long and has been talking to someone for a long time. I might call up there and tell the staff member that's there, hey, I actually need to see you in my office. Can you come down here? And then all of those things are ways to give somebody an out to stop them from feeling like they have to continue a conversation when it's not comfortable for them. Another question is, do you have a plan for when patrons become angry at your library? Unfortunately, a lot of times when patrons come up to the desk, they're not coming up to the desk to tell you about the most wonderful experience they've had at the library. They're coming up to the desk because they are sure they turned that book in and they don't know why you didn't remove it from their account, or they don't know how to log on to their account anymore and they can't access anything, or they were working with somebody else the other day and that person was really rude to them. They're usually upset when they're coming to talk to you. So what do you do if all of the things you've tried to do to explain to them what they can do at the library, all the ways you've been trying to de-escalate the situation, don't work? What if they continue to get ramped up and continue to get upset? At my library, my staff at the desk know that they can contact me or one of the other management staff, and we will come and step in right away. I will 100% do that. In fact, if it's happening at my circulation desk, I'm probably going to hear it and step out there before it gets to the point that they need someone. But they always know that there's a time and a place when they can escalate that if they're not comfortable and don't think they can handle it anymore. I will step in and help them out with that. Do you have a panic button at your library? Is that something you should consider instituting? Maybe you need a panic button. We don't have a panic button at my library, but we do have the non-emergency police number on a label that we made from our label maker on every single phone in the library, just in case we need it. And there have been situations when, for example, I've had to go confront a patron about a behavior that they've had, where I'll have a staff member who is on the computer watching on the security cameras and has a phone right by them in case something goes wrong and they know that they're going to need to call the police to have somebody come in and help me out. These are all things that are good options for you to also use as a role play. If you have a staff training day, this is a great time for you to role play with your staff. I know role play feels really awkward and kind of weird when you have to do that at a staff training, but that's a great way to talk through it and get people some practice in being able to politely step away from a situation, to be able to step in and be aware of what's going on with their coworkers so that we can help keep each other safe. Next thing I want you to think about are name badges. I've got a picture of my name badge on there. I'm actually wearing it right now. When I started working at this library, my name badge looked pretty similar to that. It had my first name in big letters, and then underneath it, where my pronouns are now, it had my first name and my last name. And then underneath that, it had my title. Well, I left it there like that for a while, but eventually I thought about it. Is there really a reason why my patrons need my first and last name? I don't think there necessarily is. There isn't really a reason why they would need my first and last name at the desk. And for safety reasons, it makes sense to hide that kind of thing. So I changed our name badges. So we have our first names on our name badges, and we have pronouns if that's something that people want. Most of my staff members have opted in on that. And then we left the titles on there. That's fine. We actually don't have that many duplicate names at my library. So it's not really a problem if somebody comes in and says they spoke with Jenny and we have to, talk to the 5 different Jennys to find out which one it was that they happened to talk to. We also had a situation before where we've had a staff member who had a really unusual first name, and their unusual first name got a lot of commentary from patrons who thought that, it was their right to give their opinion on somebody else's name. So in that case, that staff member actually asked if they could have a different name on their name badge, not a name that they went by. This wasn't like legal name versus preferred name. This was a completely separate name altogether. This was just going to be their work name. And of course, I'm going to give them their work name. They can have whatever they want on their name badge. I don't have a problem with that. Um, I've had staff members come up and ask if they can change their name or their pronouns on their name badge. My answer is always yes. This is literally a piece of paper that I print on the computer and slide into a name badge, so our nameplate. So I will do that as many times as they need me to. That's not a problem. Scheduling. It doesn't sound like something that should be part of physical protections, but that's something that I have noticed at my library, mainly with my younger staff members. Some work norms and office norms are things that you actually have to teach to people because they might not have learned it before. In our case, we have several staff members for whom the library is their first grown-up job. So I've had to teach people that if a patron comes in and they ask, "Hey, is Jenny here?" if I'm not here, it's fine for them to say, "Well, no, they're not here right now." "Oh, well, when are they going to be in next?" We don't necessarily need to tell the patron what the schedule is. In that case, I like to give my staff members an alternative and say, what you say then is, "Well, they're not here right now, but if you'd like, I can give you their business card and you can send them an email. Or if you don't want to send them an email, if you have a really brief message, I can write it down and I'll make sure that they get it. I'll put it on their desk for them." Rather than giving the patron access to knowing when somebody's schedule is so they can, for example, come in only when I'm working or only when a certain other person is working. Or if they're trying to avoid me because I'm the bad guy who's always telling them not to do something, then maybe they want to come in just when I'm not working. But we don't need to be giving that type of information to the public. Another thing to think about is phone calls. If you have ever had a patron on the phone with you and they have gotten angry, I know that you probably know what it feels like when someone starts using angry language. They might start shouting. Sometimes they start using foul language, or they might be cursing while they're on the phone. Does your library have some kind of a policy or a rule about how long you have to be on the phone with that? How long do you have to listen to that before you can hang up? And again, that's one of those things where, since we're in a helper profession, a lot of us, we're going to default to listening and listening and listening and trying to talk them down and trying to get them to see our point or trying to be accommodating. Where in reality, if somebody is cursing at you on the phone, you probably don't need to listen to that anymore. I have cleared it with my director and have made sure that all my staff know that at our library, if a patron is cursing at them on the phone, they are allowed to hang up. They are absolutely allowed to hang right up. They don't even have to tell to the patron why they're hanging up. They can just hang up. We actually had one patron who was so frequently calling into the library and only being foul on the phone. When he was in person, he was perfectly pleasant. But when he would call in, all of a sudden he would let a string of expletives go. So we blocked his number. And the next time he came into the library, I had a conversation with him and said, "I had to block your number because every time you call into the library, you're cursing at my staff, and they don't need to be putting up with that." He apologized. We left it blocked for a little bit, and then we've tried again. We've given him the opportunity to have the option to try calling back, and he hasn't had a problem since then because we were able to have that conversation. But again, that's something that, do your staff have to deal with something like that, or is that something that you can put in their hands and give them the power to do something about? So the note on the bottom there says, "Time to update your personnel and patron behavior policies." You're probably not in charge of updating your personnel and patron behavior policies at your library, but I bet you know who is. So definitely take a look at how long has it been since those have been updated. Is this time for us to take a look at it? Maybe change the language in a little bit. On this slide, I've got a clip of just a part of our patron behavior policy. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. You've seen patron behavior policies before. You can find them online. But the things that I like best in this, there's a line that says behavior that interferes with another person's use or enjoyment of the library. And there's another line that says behavior that interferes with staff work or library activities. Both of those are very generic catch-all points that allow us to take care of behavior problems that aren't necessarily listed in here, because we're not ever going to be able to list every single thing that someone can do in the library that they shouldn't be doing. But having those things in the policy means that I can point to the policy and say, yes, when you were monopolizing my reference librarian's time at the desk, when you were not leaving after they told you that they needed to help other patrons, that was preventing other people from being able to use the library. That was preventing my staff member from being able to work. So I did need you to step away. So definitely make sure as much as you can that you make sure that you have a policy that can back up and empower your staff to do what it is that they need to do at the library. All right, so what happens if you have a physical altercation? What do you do when it's going on? One of the downsides of having my desk, my office, as close to the circulation desk as it is that when I usually have my office door open, that means that sometimes patrons seem to think that it's okay for them to walk behind the circulation desk through a staff room and into my office to come get my attention if they don't like what a patron or a staff member has said to them at the desk, or if they're not getting attention as quickly as they want, or if they just think they want to come say hi to me. Sometimes they will come walking right into my office. So what do you do when something like that happens? The first thing I'm going to say you need to do is you need to stay alert. If you are at a public facing desk, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on with your coworkers. Make sure that you are looking around. Don't get so focused in on what it is you're doing, which I understand is a hard thing to do. If you're super focused on, I'm checking in all these materials, or I really have to go grab these holds, or I am, trying to update this thing on our website, or whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you look up from your project and pay attention to what's going on so you can support your coworkers, so you can hopefully see things happening before they get too bad. De-escalation techniques are a great thing. Sometimes active listening will work. You can listen to a patron who is angry, and sometimes they just want to rant. And if they've got somebody that they can rant at, if you've got the spoons to be able to handle that, after they're done talking about it, they're not angry anymore, and they're fine to walk away even if you don't give them the thing that they initially thought they wanted. Make sure you stick to your policy. Use a script if you have to. At my library, when we have patrons who come in and are objecting to a book and want to request for reconsideration, I have written out an exact script that I have asked my staff members at the desk to use if I'm not there to do it for them. And it's on a piece of paper, and I've told them it is fine for them to pull out that piece of paper and read directly from it. So we are saying no more and no less than what it is that we need to say for every single patron who wants to request that a book get reconsidered. So make sure that you stick to your library's policy, and know when you need to call for help. Know when you need to call for backup. That might be another staff member who's on your level, somebody else who's at the same desk, or somebody who's working in the back. That might mean that you ask somebody else to go get a manager, or you ask someone to go get the director. That might mean it might be time to call the police in, but make sure that you are aware so you know when it is time for you to get some help to come in and help you out. Now, after an incident has happened, sometimes it's easy enough to weather a thing when it's going on. When I had the last patron who came walking into my office, and I had to stand up and put my hand out and say, "Excuse me, I need you to step back out to the patron area, please. This is a staff area." And I had to walk them out back to the patron area and show them where the line is, where it says, staff members only beyond this point. Afterwards, I was a little shaken up, and I needed some time to sit and to decompress. But the first thing I did is I made sure to do a written log. Make sure you are keeping track of what's going on. I cannot tell you how many times it has helped us at our library to have a log of things that have happened, because that helps us to know, is this the first time we've talked with this patron? Is this the 5th time we've talked with this patron? Has this patron does this every single day this week? Has this patron done this every Tuesday night? This is just what they do. They come in and they harass the staff on Tuesdays or whatever. You can't see those patterns if you don't have it written down. So we actually have a behavior log that's a physical paper binder that we write in whenever a patron comes in, we have an interaction. If necessary, sometimes we take screenshots from our security cameras, and we'll put those on there as well, especially if we don't know the patron's name. But we keep all of that written down. This patron came in and this was the thing that happened, and this was how we responded. And it's in there so we can say, wow, it looks like we've done this 3 times that this patron has come in. And for example, I had one patron who came in and was very upset at something that one of my staff members had said. And so they chose to throw some books, literally throw books that they had brought back to return at my staff member while cussing at them. That happened multiple times before I found out about it. But when I did, I was able to go back and look in the log and see that this had happened. And since I knew what the patron's name was, I was able to contact them and let them know that for the next 6 months, they were not welcome in our library because they needed some time to think about their choices before they came back in. And I wanted my staff to be safe. After that, make sure people have a space to cool down. That is a hard thing to do, but it is a very important thing. If my staff have dealt with a particularly difficult patron, I always make sure that they get a chance to step away from the desk. Maybe that means they want to go take a walk outside. That's a great idea. Go take a walk outside if you can. Maybe they want to go be in the very back room as far as possible away from where the public are. That's absolutely fine too. Maybe they need some time to step into the back and scroll on their phone for a little bit, or they want to get a drink, or they want to go shelf some books so that they're doing something that's a repetitive task that, again, doesn't necessarily involve interacting with people. Give them the time and space that they need to cool down. Doing that, though, means that you need to be able to have staff who are flexible stepping in for everybody else. As manager, I think that one of the most important things I can do is to be able to step in for any of my staff members for what it is that they do. If I can't run the things at the circulation desk, then I have no business being the manager of my library. If I can't step in and do a basic reference interaction, then I have no business being the manager of my library. So if somebody needs to go cool down for a minute, if they've had a difficult interaction and they want to go take a walk around the block, or they're going to walk to the local gas station to buy a Gatorade or something because they want to have some time away, I'm going to let them do that, and I will step in to their spot for them if it needs to happen. Also, make sure you inform your manager, inform your director as needed. Keep everybody up to date, and do that whichever way works best for your library. Maybe you have a Google group that you reply things to. Maybe your director really likes to have texts. Maybe you would prefer to have email so that you have a written log in your email. However it is, just make sure that you've got everything written down and you've given people the space that they need so that they can cool down and they can start to feel a little more safe when they're at the library. All right, so we've talked about trying to keep people safe in person. What do we do about things online? The internet is a wonderful place that has a whole bunch of information, and I love making that available for my patrons, but unfortunately, the internet can also be a dumpster fire. And some of the things that we can do online, both for our library and also for our personal safety, are things that we can do as preparation before something happens. So one of the first things I want you to think about is using a library email address to set up your social media account. When I started working at my current library job, one of the very first things that happened was my director, who was already friends with me on Facebook, went onto Facebook and made me an admin of our library's Facebook page. This allows me to post things about programs, to answer people's questions, to moderate comments as needed. All of those things are great. The problem with that is that means that my personal social media account is now tied to my library's account. And it's entirely possible that that's part of the way that some of the trolls were able to find me when they started sending the messages. At a previous library that I worked at, we actually had to set up a dummy Facebook account with our library work email address. So an account that I wasn't using for personal anything. And then that account was the one that I was given access to be the admin of the library's Facebook page. This way, the two things weren't tied to each other at all. My personal Facebook page didn't talk to the library's Facebook page at all. It was a little bit more work for me to flip around on my phone to find the right things, but that's okay. It is 100% worth it in order to have access like that and to keep those things separate. Think about whether or not you are allowed to disallow or hide comments on your social media posts. This is going to vary library by library. Some libraries have very strict rules about, yes, I can do this, and some have very strict rules about, no, I absolutely cannot do this. So this is definitely going to depend on your library, your municipality, what your rules are like at your library. But consider the option of being able to disallow or hide the comments, particularly if they start to become comments that you don't think are appropriate or aren't following library policy. Also consider sending all of your library correspondence to a general email address rather than having it go to someone's specific email address. I've worked at libraries where my email address, my work email address, was just on the website and anybody could look at it and pull it off. I've worked at libraries like the one I'm at now, where if someone goes on our website and they want to contact me, they have to do a contact form, but it still comes to my email. But what about putting all of that into a general email address? Have it come to info@whatever your libraries.com website is or .info website is, and then give that access to multiple people at your library. That would mean that if, for example, the trolls are coming after me, I can step away from that general email inbox and say, "Hey, coworker, would you please take over this for me? I would like you to run interference on this email for a while because I don't think that it would be wise for me to be looking at what is being posted in there." So this again is a clip from our library social media policy. Not going to read it all. You all know how to read. But the thing that I like in here most is it says the library reserves the right to deny or remove in whole or any part any comments, tags, or images that violate the law, the rights of a third party, library policy, blah, blah, blah. That gives us the right. It says it right in our policy that we are allowed to hide comments if we don't want the comments there. We can delete comments if we don't want them there. So that gives us the option to be able to do that and the power to do that so that we can protect ourselves, our patrons, the library's reputation online. We can make sure that things are falling within line with our policy. All right, let's talk about some personal safety online. First thing that I'm going to recommend everybody does is lock down your privacy settings. I am not about to go through every single version of social media that exists and talk about how to do it on a desktop or how to do that on your iOS phone or how to do that on your Android phone or how to do that on your tablet, because there are way too many options. We would be here all day long and I would probably get some of the information wrong because it's probably changed since the last time I looked at it. But we're librarians, we're information professionals. Look up the information on how to change the privacy settings on whatever social media platforms you use and check those periodically. Double check to see what the settings are like. I know that there, on some of them, you can view your account and your profile as an outsider. There's a version for that. So you can look at, oh, well, what does it look like if someone Googles me and finds my Facebook page? What is it going to look like to them? Oh, well, I can see it. Wow, they've got all of this, very private stuff that I posted a long time ago. Maybe I should lock that down. Maybe I should delete those things. So look in the privacy settings and set them as high as you possibly can, whatever would make you most comfortable. For me, that is absolutely as high as they possibly can. I try to keep them very, very, very locked down. Also remove personal information. A lot of us, when we set up our Facebook pages back in the dark ages, when Facebook was a thing that wasn't just for old people, as I've been told, um, put a whole bunch of personal information on there because they had all these nice little slots and you could fill in the names of your pets and what high school you went to and what was the first car that you drove and what type of people are you interested in dating and what is your actual birth date including the year, and you could let all of that be available to the public and everybody could look at it. It's not necessarily required for you to have all of that information on there, though, and none of it really needs to be seen by everyone else. So it's definitely an option for you to go in and remove some of those things if you would like to in order to keep yourself safer. Also, please be careful what you post. Everyone always says this, but I'm going to say it again because it needs to be said. Be careful what you post. If you're on vacation, don't post your pictures from your vacation while you're on vacation. Wait until you get back home and post your pictures once you're home so that you're not advertising to everybody else that you're out of the country for a week. If you see one of those posts that your mom or your grandma or your uncle or somebody else has posted where they're like, answer all of these cute questions. When I was in high school, I drove a blank. And my favorite teacher in elementary school was blank. Is it cute and fun to read that information about somebody else? Sure, that could be entertaining. However, that's also a really great way for someone to get all of your passwords and all of your security questions because those are really common security questions right there. So don't post those things. Maybe remind your friends and your family members if you see them posting those that that's not the best thing to do. Another one, and this one's a toughie, is to occasionally nuke your account. Sometimes the smartest and safest thing for you to do is to just take that social media account that you have and just get rid of it altogether. Just get rid of that account, blast it into space, start a brand new one. I do this periodically with Reddit. I like to use Reddit. I like to read things on there. Just like the rest of the internet, it can be a dumpster fire. And as much as every time I start a new account, I try to be super careful about not putting any personal information in there, things come out while you're writing, while you're answering people's questions or while you're making a comment. And if you leave enough personal breadcrumbs on there, someone could put all of that together and find information. So it's a good idea to nuke your account on occasion. All right, that last one, change your passwords. I want you to think in your head right now, when was the last time that you sat down and changed all of your passwords? Has it been 3 months? Has it been 6 months? Has it been a year? Do you have passwords that are the same password you originally put in when you set something up? I'm going to raise my hand because I am one of those people who does that. I 100% have some passwords that I have not changed, and I really ought to do that. Best practice at that is to definitely change them more frequently rather than less frequently, and to not use the same password for every single site, and to make sure that your passwords are something secure. And I know we've all heard that, but when it comes to the difference between it's slightly annoying for you to look up which password are you using on which particular site you're on versus someone has doxed you and has found all of your information online and they're posting it everywhere and you can't get rid of it because all of your passwords have been stolen, it's really better to err on the side of caution and to use the most secure passwords you can and to change them as frequently as you are comfortable. 3 months is not a bad idea. Once a year is okay, but definitely more frequently than never needs to happen. You need to be changing those passwords. All right, so what are you going to do when something happens? When your library is getting attacked, when you're getting attacked? How are you going to know something's even going on? The first thing that is a great notification to me is that your social media notifications are going to increase, or you're going to get a ton of friend requests, or you're going to get a ton of messages. All of a sudden, all of your notifications are ramping up because something has happened, either on your personal page or it might be on your library's page. You might start getting harassing emails or messages from unknown numbers or from empty social media accounts or accounts pretending to be your friends. That definitely happened to me. On those screenshots, every single time one of those people messaged me, when we looked at their account, there was nothing there. There was no picture, there was no information. The person had no friends, had no likes, had no nothing. It was just a dummy account. You may start receiving messages about attempts to access your accounts, particularly if, like me, you haven't changed your passwords frequently. So what are you going to do when all of a sudden you are getting attacked online? The first thing you need to do is to document everything. Take screenshots, forward messages if they're messages that can be forwarded. Remember the locks rule that we all learned in library school. Lots of copies keep stuff safe. All right, so document it by screenshotting it. Then take all those screenshots and stick them in a folder. If you can, email those to somebody else or stick them on a Google Drive so you have an extra copy of them somewhere else. The other nice thing about putting them in a folder is then you're not going to look at them every time you're opening up your phone and looking in your image files. You'll have that in a folder somewhere so you don't have to see it in your face. Delegate where you can. Do you have a trusted friend or family member who you can say, I want you to look at my Facebook stuff for me, and you screenshot it and pass it on to the person who needs to know? Maybe you can just delegate it and not even look at it. Maybe even hand your phone over to somebody else and just let them take charge of your phone for a while. Consider filing a report with the police or the FBI. This may or may not actually do anything. In the case when things were happening at my library, we did file a report with our local police, and my director did submit a report online to the FBI just so that we would start a paper trail in case something got worse. And honestly, doing something just in case it might get worse is not a bad idea. Allow staff members to work from home or in a safer location if needed. Is that something that you can do? Can you allow somebody to work from home? Can you allow somebody to change their office? I was offered that when the trolls started attacking our library. I was offered to move from my office downstairs in the library to a place that was a little more hidden away from the public if I wanted to. Is it possible for them to do that just for a little while? Are there tasks you can give your staff members so that they can work in a safer location? At my library, when I have staff members who've had a difficult interaction at the desk, sometimes they want to step into our programming space and help prepare things for the next craft that is coming up. Sometimes they want to step in the back and start working on the materials that we're transiting throughout our consortium. So they might step in the back and start, bagging up the transit materials, and they'll switch places with the person who was scheduled to do that, and that person will be front facing. But see if you can let somebody work from home or work in a safer location if they need to. But definitely make sure that somebody else is in charge of, like, with my situation with the library's Facebook page, I didn't even log on to the Facebook page anymore for a while. I let somebody else take a look at the notifications. I let someone else run interference. Somebody else was making all the responses to things or deleting things as need be, because I didn't need to see the accusations that were being leveled against me. What are you going to do afterwards? After the trolls have gone on to something else, they've decided that you're not interesting anymore, and they have gone on to find somebody else. The first thing I highly recommend is to use a service, something like Delete Me, to remove your identifying information from the internet. If this is happening at your library and it's happening to one of your staff members, maybe consider the option of having the library foot the bill for that. I know that all of us are facing budget situations right now, but that's something to consider, to put something like that, a line item in your budget, and say, hey, every once in a while we might need to be able to use a service like this to make sure that our staff are safe, because what has happened to them has happened in the course of their job here at the library. Consider changing your cell phone number. You might need to change your cell phone number. Take time off. I'm going to say that one again because I know that all of you are probably having the same problem I have, which is forgetting that that's an option. Take time off. Your vacation time doesn't mean necessarily that you have to like go somewhere else for a trip. You could just take time off and not be at work for a little bit. That would be okay. If one of my staff members was facing this kind of harassment online and they needed to take time off as a mental health day, I would let them count that as a sick day as well. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Let them have the time off. Utilize your library's employee assistance program if you've got one. If you don't have one, see what you can do about talking to your director or your board about having one, so that you have the option to get a therapy appointment if you need to have a therapy appointment if you don't already have a therapist, or have some extra time to work from home, or whatever else it is that would be included in your assistance program. Consider taking a social media break. Turn the notifications off on your phone, or put the app to sleep, or delete the app entirely, or take your phone when you get to work, which is what I do with my phone, and turn off the notifications on it so you're not hearing the noise, and then set it somewhere where you're not even looking at it. For me, that means it has to be not on my desk. Usually I have to put it in a drawer so that it's not even sitting out in my space, and it's not something that I'm looking at or worrying about because it's not there reminding me, oh, it's here, maybe I should look at my shiny screen. No, you don't need to look at it. Just leave it alone. And rely on your support network. Do you have a support network? Do you have some friends that you can count on who would help you out if something like this was going on? Think about who it is that you could contact for something like this. Maybe have their numbers written down just in case you need to, and rely on them to help you out. If you have a staff member that you're trying to help with something like this, talk to them about their support network. Talk to them about if they've got someone that they would like to contact, or that they would like you to contact, who can come and help them out, who can run interference for them, who can give them a distraction when they're at home, so you can check on them. Your queer and trans library staff already know that they're in danger. They're not going to be surprised when these things happen. What they need to know is that you will support and protect them when it does. I want to make sure that you all have the materials and the information that you need so that you can support and protect yourselves and your queer and trans library staff at your library, because everyone deserves the right to go to work and feel safe when they're at work, and to feel like they're supported when they're at work. So make sure that your staff know that you will support and protect them when something does happen. So these are some of the resources. This will be shared afterward when we share the recording. You will also get a copy of this because there are some links in here. I highly recommend Ryan Dowd's Homelessness in the Library training. This is a great training for interacting with patrons of all types, not just those who are unhoused. And it's a free training too. So that is a great thing to do. This is an oldie but a goodie. The Black Belt Librarian book is a great one if you can find a copy of it. PFLAG is another great resource. They have a ton of online training. It's all free. You don't have to be part of PFLAG to use it. And one of them is specifically about how to keep yourself safe online. So that is a great one to use for yourself and also to share with others. And I've also got a link to what is called the Doxing Emergency Protocols, which is some more information about what to do if you are doxed and some things that you can do to keep yourself safe when that does happen. Here's my contact information. There's a picture of both of my cats. The one in the front is Cheese. She is 8 months old and she's a terror. And the one in the donut is Crookie. She's the one who's been wandering around back here because she just had her surgery. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions now.
I'm so glad that you shared with us the cats' names, because actually the very first question in our list was the very important question of what was the name of our visiting cat. So so thank you for that. All right, we're going to go to the next question. When you keep a behavior or incident log, who has access to it to track patterns? Is it available to all staff, or for privacy reasons only supervisors, or only public facing staff? Like, what restrictions does your library have on that kind of thing?
That's a good question. We have our binder is actually accessible to all of our staff. I don't think that any of our staff who aren't public facing are interested in looking at it, but they are welcome to do so if they want to. We keep it behind our circulation desk in an area that would be very difficult for patrons to get to. My front-facing circulation staff are the ones who access it the most, but the full-time librarians at our library, the ones who are usually acting as the library in charge at night and closing or working on Saturdays, also have access to that. And it's generally their responsibility to either delegate somebody to write out an incident if it's occurred, or to write it out themselves and make sure that it gets into that binder.
I can offer another way that a library structures that kind of thing because we have it all on software at our library and we have different users set with different permissions. So everyone can see if there was a violent incident, if we have trespassed someone, if someone was asked to leave the library even just for the rest of the day, which is our general first line, if someone is being disruptive but not dangerous. Um, they can try again tomorrow, but they have to leave today. All of that stuff is available to everyone. And then if it's something of a more sensitive nature, our um, library social worker works with someone, for example, they document all of that stuff, but it is behind a firewall where only administrators can see that part. So there are lots of different ways to kind of set that up. Okay, next question. For trans people, is it safe or responsible to file a report with the FBI right now, given the federal stance on trans people and the purges of workers?
That is a very good question. And for myself, if another incident were to happen at my library, because I'm non-binary, I would not necessarily want to be filing any information with the FBI. I was even a little squicky about letting our local police know about the things that were going on because that essentially required me to out myself to the police. Um, so that is definitely something to take into consideration, just like a lot of the things that we all have to consider now. And that's another thing to think about when it comes to like your name badges or who can see your Facebook page or whether or not it's tied to your library's social media is how much of that is going to come back to you and allow people to see more information than you're willing to share with someone outside of your safety network.
If an individual staff member is targeted by hateful comments or false accusations in the local media, for example, a local newspaper, how would you recommend the library respond to that? How should they protect that person?
Oh, that is an excellent question. Fortunately, and I'm going to knock on all of the pretend wood things that are in my office at this moment. Fortunately, that isn't something that has happened here at my library. I think something like that, I would definitely make sure that the director was informed. She would probably also inform the board. I don't know that sending any kind of rebuttal to a newspaper would be useful. Contacting the newspaper to see if they can post a retraction would be probably a good idea. Whether or not they're actually going to do it is entirely different. I think in that case, that is one of the situations where you would bring it to the director and bring it to the board, let them know what's going on, and hope that at some point the newspaper is going to move on to the next, chaos drama that has happened nearby, and that they will leave the staff member alone after that.
Sort of in the same vein as that FBI question, many people, including trans people and people of color, may not feel comfortable calling police to the library. Are there tips to better work with police so that staff feel safer with them? Are there structures that libraries can put in place to protect vulnerable staff, or are there alternatives to calling the police at all?
That is a really good point, and I can absolutely understand people's hesitation on wanting to contact the police. Again, that's not one of those things that's necessarily my first choice or something that I feel super comfy doing. Some libraries have their own security system or security person who works at the library. My current library does not have a situation like that, but I've been at libraries before where they've had a security person that you could talk to instead. As far as interacting with the police when something happens, beforehand, what's worked best for us is to make sure to have a decent relationship with the police department, which again, that is a hard thing and that is fraught. We have in our town, we have a local crime watch group, and they very frequently like to put on events at the library. So I interact with the crime watch group and then end up seeing the police officers when they come into the library. I try my best, and I know that because of my race, I have a privilege here, but I try my best to interact with them in a nice, neutral way as much as I can, so that they've seen me and they know me and they know that I'm a person at the library and that I work here. Um, and that makes it a little bit easier when we do have to interact with them if they come in and have some kind of a situation like that. But again, that is something that I do take into consideration when we have to call them in, is how much of outing of a person is going to have to happen, how much of the safety that we want from the police are we going to not necessarily get because the person we're talking about is trans or is non-white or something like that.
Do you hold debriefing sessions with your staff after an incident so everyone can review what happened, what worked, what didn't, and what would work better in case there's a next time?
I do, but I don't do it with a group as a whole. I'm sure for those of you who work at a library, you know how difficult it is to get every single person in the library together while they're at work and not having somebody have to run the desk. One of the nice things for me is that my staff is fairly small, so when it comes to something that has happened at the library, I will update all of my management staff, usually via email. And then when it comes to my circulation staff who have the public facing areas, I will talk to them in groups. I can usually get 3 or 4 of them at a time and talk to them. And it might take me a couple of days to catch people, especially the part timers, but I try to make sure that everybody's up to date on what's happened, not just through a mass email or a note that's attached to the clipboard at the desk that everybody's supposed to initial or anything like that. But I want to be able to have face to face conversations, particularly with the staff who are involved with the situation. If, for example, last night, apparently we had a patron here who was possibly on some substances, but was not really excited about leaving the library when it was time to leave the library. So when something like that happens, I like to talk to the manager who was on duty that night and find out, what is it that you did? How did the person seem? How did they react? And then I also want to talk to the desk staff to find out what it was that was going on with them. How did they feel? Did they feel like they were unsafe? Did they feel like they were supported? What is it that I can do as a manager to help them out? Because I love it when my staff can give me ideas of things that I haven't even thought about before. Oh, we could absolutely try having a panic button here. Or you're right, maybe we should on certain nights of the week have an extra staff member here so that we have more people here. That's not a bad idea. Things like that.
Okay, an anonymous participant has shared something that happened to them several years ago in 2018. My direct supervisor made disparaging comments about the sexuality of an intern whom I never met, but coincidentally had the same initials that I do. I didn't bring it up at the time out of fear of retribution. I'm unsure how to bring this up now, and it still haunts me with guilt for not speaking up immediately. Anonymous, I'm not Jenny, but I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And I'm sorry that you are bothered by it to this day.
Wow. Yeah. Anonymous, I am also sorry that you had to deal with that. That is a hard thing. I hate to tell you, just don't feel guilty about it anymore because that's a silly thing, but I can understand why you would feel guilty about that now and why you feel like you should have said something. Um, when it comes to someone who's a supervisor saying something, that's a tricky situation depending on how many levels of supervision you have at your library. Um, for my staff, if I ever made a disparaging comment about somebody on my staff and my staff was bothered by it and wanted to talk to me about it, I would love it if they would come to me, but I would also understand if they didn't feel comfortable coming to me and being like, hey, you said this thing and that was not cool. If that's the case, I would want them to go to the next person in line, which at my library would be my director. I would 100% want them to tattle on me to my director so that she could correct me on that because that's something that needs to happen. Depending on how small your library is, though, it might just be all of your staff and your director. You might not have a whole lot of other people that you can talk to. And in that case, the only person who's above the director or people who are above the director is usually your library board or your board of trustees. And that can be a little bit complicated. That kind of a question, if it was something that had happened right now, I would actually recommend that you go on the Ask a Manager website and let Allison, who runs that blog, know because she's probably got some great verbiage that you could use. She's some excellent scripts there. But since it's something that happened in 2018, I would say remind yourself that when you know better, you do better. And so now you know that it's something that you want to speak up about, so you can pay attention if it does happen again, and you can stand up for the other person.
Okay, next question. Do you require anyone making an official complaint against the library or against a specific staff member to share their own private information, such as their name, address, contact info? It would seem to me that that practice might be a helpful deterrent for some people who just want to engage in general harassment and don't have a legitimate complaint. Most bad actors don't want to give out their info, in my experience.
That is 100% the truth. They definitely don't want to give out their information, which is why anytime we see some kind of a comment online where it's just from, from an empty Facebook page, then we take that with, several truckloads of salt, because we just figure that whoever it is just ranting on the internet, and they just don't, they're not really serious about what the problem is. The person who had made those accusations against me, if I had actually done something to their 10-year-old, then they should have gone to the police. And they made it sound like they were going to go to the police. Please absolutely do go to the police with something like that. But don't just post it on Facebook, because that's not going to do anything. When people come into our library, our request for reconsideration form actually has information on there for books and programs and displays for lots of things we have at the library. And it does require someone to put in all of their contact information, because we have to let them know what it is that we decide on that. So 100%, if somebody has a problem with something that's going on with one of my staff members, I do want their contact information so I can get back to them about whatever it is after I talk to my staff member and have a discussion about it.
Okay, we are right up toward the end of our time. There is not another session after this, so we do not have to get out of the room. If Jenni, if you are available to answer the last couple of questions.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can go ahead and do
we
that.
can keep the room open for a little bit. Okay. Considering that there are so many passwords to keep up with, that most people are unable to remember to change them regularly and then remember what they changed them to, are there password managers, apps, etc., that you would recommend to help keep passwords organized, up to date, and track if they've been involved in any breach?
There are 100% password managers and apps that you can use for that thing. I am really, really super old school though. So my password manager is this little tiny notebook that's made out of a Pokemon card, and it's just got paper in it. And so what I do is I write down the password that I've used for whatever item it is on a page, and then when I go back and change it, then I cross that one out and write the new one underneath it. So I don't have a specific app recommendation, but I'm betting somebody can post something in the comments where they've got an app that they would recommend, and I will happily accept any kind of suggestions that someone has if they're more techie than I am.
I will say for myself, if you are, it's probably not the most secure option just because of who owns it, but if you are a Google Chrome user, Chrome does have a pretty reliable password manager. So if you are looking for the lowest barrier of entry, if not perhaps the highest level of service, I can say that that one is working for me. Okay. You recommended letting staff work from home or other locations during an incident that may compromise their safety or their feeling of safety at work. What do you do if they have a job that is not one that can be done at home, like shelving the books, or you don't have maybe other branches at some of these libraries? Are there things we can offer to those staff if we can't offer them go work at this other branch for a week?
Sure. Yeah, we don't generally at our library send someone to one of our other branches. We do have other branches. I usually keep my people here if I can. The first thing that I offer them is the option to possibly go do something that is in the back of house. So like I said, packing up materials that are being sent on our consortium, doing one of our long neglected organization projects, because everyone's got a long neglected organization project that might need some attention. Helping to prep things for a craft program, prepping things for summer reading, prepping things for 1,000 books before kindergarten. Sometimes I will have them step into the back, and I might even give them a job that is not something that is super urgent and have them work on that, and I'll step in front and I'll be the one who's sitting at the desk if need be. When it comes to somebody who's got a public facing job, I've got a couple of staff members who have public facing jobs and have occasionally needed some work from home time. I will offer them the option to come up with some ideas for me. Brainstorming is a good thing for them. I will ask them to brainstorm some ideas for some things that we can put into the library of things, because we have a library of things at our library. So I say, come up with some other kits for me and give me links for all of the things that I could buy. Or I'll give them a genre of book that we need to purchase that is not my forte, and have them go look that up for me. And I'll say, I need to get some new graphic novels for the library. Will you please give me a list of 20 diverse graphic novels that we can buy for the library? Just give me the author and the title, and I will input them into Ingram myself. We have let people take things home and help with program prep. We don't have a whole lot of like cut and pasty type things to do for programs, but there are occasionally things, and we'll have some people take that home and do that. And sometimes some of my staff don't necessarily want to be hidden from the public, but they don't want to be at a desk where they're just going to be face to face with people. So I've occasionally given people the option to go help with shelving or to help with weeding. I'll give them a list and let them go pull books from the shelves, or do a really not fun task like, please go open all of the DVD cases one by one and see if the DVDs are still in them. It's not exciting, but it is necessary. And if they're doing that and obviously working, there's a better chance that they aren't going to have to interact with the patron necessarily. Whereas if they're at the desk, they're 100% going to have to interact with the patron.
Okay, we've got some recommendations for resources in the chat. Some people recommended Bitwarden as a password manager. Someone used LastPass. Someone else switched from LastPass to ProtonPass after LastPass, I guess, was involved in some breaches. April shared that CPI crisis prevention training is one of the best trainings that April's ever had for de-escalation. So that's another option. We know that there are varying opinions on the Ryan Dowd trainings. So that's another option for people. And someone else shared, it's always a good time to plug the Library Freedom Project, which is at libraryfreedom.org. So those are some things. And Nova, I believe, also sent a link to it is called the Big Ass Data Broker Opt-out List on GitHub, which is for if you do not have the resources to pay for a service like Delete Me, but would like those to be available, would like to pursue more anonymity online. Okay. How do you feel about staff working alone?
I do not prefer for my staff to work alone. At my library, bare minimum amount of people who work in the library at any given time would be 2. I prefer 3 or more. Generally speaking, in the evenings, on Saturdays, days when we might have a lower staff level, we have 2 people working at our desk, and then we have 1 librarian on duty, be it myself or one of the other management staff will be here at the library. If we absolutely have to, and it's an evening and we know things are going to be slower, or we're hoping things are going to be slower, and I've got a whole bunch of staff who are out sick, or a bunch of people who needed vacation, or emergencies have happened, I will allow it to be 1 manager and 1 desk staff member, but then the manager also has to sit at the desk with the desk staffer. And then we don't get anything else done. We just work on basic circulation duties for that evening. I prefer at least 3. If I can get more than that, more would be even better, but 3 is the bare minimum that I would want. And I definitely don't want anybody working alone. If we got to the point where there was only 1 person here, I would close the library and tell everybody to go home.
Okay, we have one last question. I saved it for the end because it's a fun question, and we don't get too many of those. Rachel says that she did get some very good answers in the chat when she originally posted this question, but would love to hear from any queer or trans library staffers in the chat, and especially from you, Jenni, about things that coworkers have done that have made you feel supported in your time here.
That's fantastic. I really love that question. Things that my staff members and coworkers have done that have made me feel supported at the library is I have staff members who are really good about correcting other people when they use the wrong pronouns for me. We generally don't bother with that with patrons. Educating patrons about that is going to have to happen at another time and not when they're in the library trying to check out materials. but they do correct other staff members for me, which is great because I feel really squicky about correcting people on my own pronouns. On the other hand, I'll go correct somebody who's using wrong pronouns for one of my staff members. That's not a problem. Um, my staff were really, really helpful for me when I was recovering from my top surgery and I came back to the library and I had T-Rex arms and I couldn't reach things. And they were really good about reminding me not to try to lift things or push things or pull things. And they were doing that for me. And another thing that my staff have done that has helped me to feel really supported is when we have some of our more conservative patrons who come into the library, and they're generally the ones, we have a couple of them who like to come in and cover any queer books or any books about witchcraft or any books with a POC on the cover. They like to cover these books with like Amish romances or anything that's got like a little cross on the side. And there's a couple of them, they're very particular about this. They do this every time they come in. And I know for certain that for myself, I will lose my cool if I try to talk to them. I'm not going to be professional. I would want to be, but I am not going to be professional. That's not going to happen. So I have some staff members who are very happy to run interference for me, and they will go up and chat with these people or just be like arranging the books right next to them, which generally stops them from doing what they're doing. They also help me out because anytime anything like that happens, I request that my staff give me a list of some more queer materials for us to order for the library because clearly we need more if we're going to hide them.
I had a very similar experience recently. One of the branch manager at we've got a very tiny satellite branch in our library system. Someone recently came into her branch and hid all of the LGBT materials in her library, and they found them when they were closing up. And she told me she checked every single one of them in as an in-house use, so we get circ stats for that. And that made me as both as a queer person who uses this library and also as the person who buys those queer books for the library, feel very supported personally and professionally. Okay, I believe that brings us to the end. So thank you everyone who remained with us. We're about 10 minutes after closing. So thank you to Jenni, thank you to everyone, and thank you to Derek for wrangling the chat. Thanks to CERT and the Rainbow Roundtable for handling the tech. CERT and the Rainbow Roundtable are committed to ensuring that all of our programs are diverse, inclusive, and free for attendees. We rely on support from ALA memberships and direct donations. You can help champion our Roundtable's mission by donating at the link provided in the chat and or by joining CERT as a member. This has been a really great session, so thank you everybody. What a wonderful way to end the day and for me to end the working week. Thanks everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.